The anniversary gift sat untouched on the table, its silver wrapping catching the light as the restaurant's sympathetic staff offered me another complimentary drink, their silent acknowledgement that being stood up on such a night deserved some small comfort. I checked my phone again. Emily's running late text contradicted by her social media location tag at a party across town. 3 years of memories, sacrifices, and ignored warning signs crystallized in that moment as rain streaked the restaurant windows. How many times can loyalty be mistaken for weakness before a good heart finally demands respect? I paid the bill, leaving a generous tip for the waiter who'd maintained my dignity through forced smiles, and drove toward the address in my notifications. What I would discover there wouldn't just end a relationship. It would begin my journey toward understanding that walking away isn't giving up, but the first step toward finding what you deserve. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, you'll understand what happened next. 3 years earlier, I'd been standing in line at Lakefront Coffee when a gust of Chicago wind blew the door open, sending a woman's sketches flying across the floor. As I helped her gather them up, I was struck by their vibrant energy, street scenes captured with bold strokes and unexpected colors. "These are amazing," I said, handing them back. "Thanks. I'm Emily," she replied, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Her smile had a mischievous quality that instantly captivated me. "Jake," I offered. "Mind if I buy you another coffee? This one's wearing most of yours." I gestured to the spill on the floor. That chance meeting became dinner that night, which became breakfast the next morning. Emily's spontaneity balanced my methodical nature perfectly. Where I planned, she improvised. Where I analyzed, she felt. My marketing career provided stability, while her freelance graphic design added creative chaos to my ordered world. My apartment reflected our differences. My organized shelves now held her colorful art books. My precise calendar now marked with her vibrant notes. I'd never been happier. When she moved in 6 months later, I rearranged my space without hesitation, making room for her easel by the window with the best light. "You're so good to me, Jake," she'd said, kissing me as sunlight streamed through the blinds. Most guys wouldn't give up their man cave for an art studio. I remembered thinking how easy it was to accommodate someone you love, how natural it felt to make small sacrifices for her happiness. I didn't recognize then that these accommodations were setting a pattern, one where my needs would gradually become optional while hers remained essential. The invitation to the company dinner had been on our calendar for weeks. After 5 years at Crawford Marketing, my promotion to Senior Account Director warranted celebration, and Emily had helped me pick out a new suit for the occasion. My boss, Richard, had reserved the private room at Gibson's Steakhouse for the leadership team and their partners. I was adjusting my tie in the hallway mirror when my phone chimed. "Can't make dinner. Mia's having a crisis. Need to be there for her. So sorry. Celebrate tomorrow." My reflection stared back, the excitement in my eyes fading as I read the text again. This was the 3rd time in 2 months that Emily's friend Mia had needed emergency support, always coinciding with events important to me. I texted back, "Everything okay? This dinner's pretty important." Her response came quickly. "She's really upset. Girl stuff. You understand, right? You're always so understanding. Love you. I did understand. I always understood." That was our dynamic. Emily's emergencies took precedence over my plans. I drove to Gibson's alone, rehearsing explanations for Emily's absence. "Where's the lovely Emily tonight?" Richard asked as I took my seat at the table. "Her friend is going through something difficult. Emily's helping her through it," I replied, manufacturing a smile. Richard's wife, Patricia, exchanged a glance with him that I pretended not to notice. "That's the third time we've missed her recently," she observed. "Your Emily seems to be busy quite often lately." "She's a good friend," I defended, even as doubt flickered beneath my words. "Very loyal." My colleague Marcus caught my eye from across the table, his expression unreadable as he raised his glass. "To Jake," he announced. "The most dependable man at Crawford, always there when you need him." Everyone toasted enthusiastically, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's words carried a double meaning. The evening progressed pleasantly enough, but Emily's empty chair beside me felt increasingly conspicuous as others shared stories and laughed with their partners. I checked my phone discreetly throughout dinner. Emily had posted nothing about Mia, but her Instagram showed she'd liked several photos from someone named Finn, a name I'd been hearing with increasing frequency. The next morning, Marcus stopped by my office with coffee. "Black, 2 sugars," he said, placing it on my desk. "You seemed like you could use this today." I looked up from my computer. "That obvious, huh?" Marcus closed the door and sat down. "Everything okay with you and Emily?" "Fine," I said automatically. "Why?" "Just checking. You seemed off last night." He hesitated. "Not just last night, actually. Past few weeks." I focused on straightening papers that didn't need straightening. Emily's just busy with her friends. Her social circle is important to her. Marcus nodded slowly. "Sure." "Everyone needs friends." He paused. "But partners need each other too, right?" "What are you getting at, Marcus?" My tone was sharper than intended. He raised his hands in surrender. "Nothing specific. Just, I've been where you are, that's all. With my ex, Diane. Always wondered why I was the only one making time for us." He stood to leave. "Probably nothing. Forget I said anything." After he left, I found myself opening my calendar, scrolling backward through the past few months. As I reviewed our plans, a pattern emerged that I hadn't wanted to see. Emily's cancellations had increased dramatically since she'd reconnected with her college friend group. What had started as occasional girls' nights had evolved into constant gatherings I was rarely invited to attend. I closed the calendar and rubbed my eyes. Was I being controlling? Emily was independent. It was one of the things I loved about her. Maybe this was just a phase, reconnecting with old friends. Maybe I was overreacting. But as I returned to work, Marcus's words echoed in my mind. "I've been where you are." For the first time, I allowed myself to wonder if where I was might not be where I should stay. Share this story with someone who needs to know they're not alone in recognizing when something's wrong. The spreadsheet hadn't been intentional. It started as casual notes. Dates when Emily canceled plans, reasons given, what I later discovered she was actually doing. I'm naturally organized. Tracking information is second nature in my work. I didn't set out to create evidence, but that's what it became. Column A, date. Column B, plans we made. Column C, Emily's reason for canceling. Column D, where she actually was, according to social media or mutual friends. I stared at 2 months of data, the pattern undeniable. Of our last 12 planned evenings together, Emily had canceled 7. Each cancellation coincided with gatherings of her rediscovered friend group. Each excuse involved someone's crisis, work emergency, or family obligation. Each reality involved parties, bars, or someone's lake house. The photos told another story. Emily tagged in 27 recent pictures with her friends. In 17 of them, she stood next to the same person, Finn Davidson. Tall, with carefully disheveled hair, and the kind of confidence that photographs well. In 4 pictures, his arm rested casually around her shoulders. In 2, they were laughing with their heads tilted toward each other, sharing some private joke. I hadn't meant to investigate my own relationship, but the evidence mounted with each scroll, each tagged photo, each canceled date. My marketing brain recognized the pattern, while my heart invented excuses. They're just old friends, college buddies, nothing more. But why the lies? Why not simply say, "I'm hanging out with friends tonight"? The most damning evidence wasn't what Emily was doing, but what she was hiding. And why? I closed the spreadsheet and named it Project Insights, innocuous enough if she ever used my laptop. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for Finn Davidson. His social profile revealed little beyond his job at a graphic design studio downtown, the connection to Emily's profession immediately apparent. But his Instagram told a different story. Chicago nightlife, exclusive parties, expensive watches, and cars that seemed beyond a designer's salary. I had the uncomfortable feeling I was looking at more than just a potential rival for Emily's affections. Something about Finn and his lifestyle didn't add up, and I couldn't shake the sense that Emily was being drawn into something more complicated than social reconnection. "You got a minute?" Marcus asked, poking his head into my office doorway 3 days later. I nodded, closing my email. "What's up?" Marcus shut the door and sat down. "I've noticed something that might be nothing, but—" He hesitated. "I was at the aviary last night with clients. Saw Emily there." My stomach tightened. She was working late on a deadline. "Jake," Marcus said gently, "she was with a group. Seemed pretty celebratory, not work-related. There was a guy she seemed close with." The confirmation of my suspicions should have hurt more, but instead, I felt an odd relief. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't crazy. "Tall guy, dark hair, expensive watch?" I asked. Marcus nodded. "You know about him?" "Finn Davidson. Old college friend, apparently." "Ah." Marcus studied me. "Look, I wouldn't normally say anything, but after Diane—" He trailed off. "What happened with Diane?" I asked, realizing I'd never heard the full story. Marcus sighed. 3 years together. She started hanging with a new crowd. Started lying about where she was. I made excuses for her. Told myself I was being paranoid." He met my eyes. "Found out she'd been cheating for months. Everyone knew but me." The parallel wasn't lost on me. "How did you handle it?" "Badly," he admitted. "Confronted her when I was angry. She turned it around, made it about my jealousy, my controlling behavior. Classic gaslighting." He leaned forward. "Jake, I'm not saying Emily's cheating, but the lying itself, that's already a problem." I nodded slowly, processing. I've been keeping track. The cancellations, the excuses, they don't match reality. That's exactly how it started with Diane. Marcus stood to leave. "Whatever you do, approach it calmly. Don't let her make this about you having a problem with her friends. This is about honesty." After he left, I sat motionless, staring at the wall. The validation that I wasn't overreacting brought both comfort and dread. The question was no longer whether there was a problem, but what I was going to do about it. That evening, I planned my approach carefully. No accusations, just open questions. Focus on patterns, not specific incidents. Make it about honesty, not control. Emily came home late, her cheeks flushed from the cold or something else. "Hey," I said from the couch, where I'd been pretending to watch TV. "Good day?" Exhausting, she sighed, dropping her bag. Client meetings back to back, then deadline revisions. I nodded, noting the lie without calling it out yet. Feel like talking for a bit? Something in my tone must have alerted her. She studied me before sitting down. Everything okay? Not really, I said evenly. I've been thinking about us lately, noticing some patterns. Her posture changed subtly, defensive. What patterns? You've canceled plans with me 7 times in the last 2 months, I said. Each time, there's been an emergency or work situation, but then I see photos of you out with friends. Her eyes narrowed. You're tracking my cancellations. Checking up on me online? That's not the point, Emily, I replied, keeping my voice steady. The point is the lying. If you want to spend time with your friends, just say so. I can't believe you're monitoring me, she deflected. This is exactly why I sometimes need space, Jake. You're suffocating me. I'm not monitoring you. I'm noticing inconsistencies in what you tell me versus what's actually happening. I paused. Who's Finn? The name landed like a stone between us. Emily's expression flashed with something, guilt, anger, before settling into indignation. Finn is a friend from college. I can't believe you're interrogating me about my friends. I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking why you're lying about where you're going and who you're with. Because you're obviously jealous and controlling, she snapped, standing up. This is exactly why I don't tell you everything. You can't handle me having my own life. Emily, I've never once complained about you having friends or your own life. I'm talking about the pattern of dishonesty. I don't have to justify my friendships to you, she said, grabbing her bag again. I need some air. I can't talk to you when you're like this. Like what? Asking for basic honesty? But she was already heading for the door. I'm staying at Mia's tonight. Call me when you're ready to trust me instead of spying on me. The door slammed, leaving me alone with the realization that everything Marcus had warned about had just happened. She'd deflected, made it about my behavior, and cast herself as the victim, all while never addressing the actual issue of her dishonesty. I sat in the quiet apartment, a strange calm settling over me. For the first time, I saw the manipulation clearly, without the fog of self-doubt. This wasn't love. This was control, just not the kind Emily was accusing me of. What would you do if you discovered the person you trusted most was living a double life? The answer might surprise you. 3 years together deserved celebration, regardless of recent tensions. I'd made reservations at Everest, the kind of place you need to book months in advance. I'd bought concert tickets for afterward, the National, Emily's favorite band. The small jewelry box in my pocket didn't contain an engagement ring. We weren't there yet, especially now. But the silver bracelet with her birthstone represented hope that we could work through our problems. Chicago's skies opened up as I arrived early to ensure everything was perfect. The maitre d' greeted me by name, showing me to a corner table with spectacular views of the city, now blurred by sheets of rain, illuminated by lightning. I ordered champagne and waited. At 7:30, our reservation time, my phone chimed. Running late, traffic terrible because of storm. Start without me. There in 20. I texted back, no problem. Take your time. Drive safe. The waiter brought bread, refreshed my water, offered sympathetic smiles. At 7:50, another text. Still stuck. Construction detour. So sorry. Another 15 min max. At 8:15, nothing. I checked Instagram absently, a habit more than suspicion now. My stomach dropped. Emily had been tagged 10 minutes ago at a party in Wicker Park. The photo showed her laughing, drink in hand, completely dry, not someone who'd been battling storm traffic. Finn stood beside her, his arm around her waist. The caption read, "Epic Party at Finn's New Place. #Thirstignite. No filter." I stared at my screen, a cold clarity washing over me. This wasn't just another cancellation. This was our anniversary, a date we'd discussed repeatedly over the past weeks. She hadn't forgotten. She'd chosen. I paid for the untouched champagne, leaving the waiter a generous tip, and walked through the downpour to my car. I entered the address from the Instagram location tag into my GPS and drove across town, windshield wipers struggling against the deluge. The upscale loft building had an entry code, but someone held the door as I approached, assuming I belonged there. Music grew louder as I took the elevator to the 5th floor. I followed the sound to Unit 512, where the door stood partially open. Through the gap, I saw them immediately. Emily and Finn in the kitchen, apart from the main crowd. Not just talking, kissing. His hands on her waist, hers around his neck. Not a friendly kiss, not a greeting. The kind of kiss that tells a story neither of them was interested in hiding, at least not here, among their friends. I pushed the door wider, stepping into the apartment. A few people noticed me, wet from the rain, still in my suit, but Emily and Finn remained oblivious until someone tapped Emily's shoulder, nodding in my direction. She turned, her expression transforming from irritation at the interruption to shock when she saw me. "Jake, what are you—" "Happy anniversary," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the roaring in my ears. The room quieted as people sensed drama unfolding. Finn kept his arm around Emily, his expression more annoyed than embarrassed. "Jake, I can explain," Emily started, stepping away from Finn, but not approaching me. "No need," I replied. "The situation seems clear enough." "You shouldn't be here," Finn interjected. "This is a private party." I ignored him, keeping my eyes on Emily. 3 years deserved better than lies, don't you think? "You're making a scene," she hissed, glancing around at the watching crowd. "I'm not the one who created this scene," I said quietly. "I just walked into it." I turned to leave, but Finn stepped forward. "Hey man, while you're here, maybe take the hint. She's obviously moved on. Stop checking her social media. Stop tracking her." Yolkir, it's pathetic. Several of his friends murmured agreement, emboldened by his confidence. I could have argued, could have shouted or made accusations. Instead, I simply reached into my pocket, placed the small gift box on the counter, and walked out. Behind me, someone laughed. Someone else said, "Poor guy." The door closed on their voices as I headed for the elevator, rain still dripping from my clothes onto the hallway floor. Outside, the storm had intensified, matching the turmoil inside me. But beneath the hurt and humiliation, something else was forming, a quiet, steady resolve. For the first time in months, I saw everything with perfect clarity. I drove aimlessly through Chicago's rain-slicked streets, windshield wipers keeping rhythmic time with my thoughts. The shock was wearing off, reality setting in. 3 years of my life had just imploded in a moment. Yet strangely, I felt more clear-headed than I had in months. Every excuse I'd made for Emily's behavior, every rationalization, every moment of self-doubt, all washed away by the undeniable image of her in Finn's arms while I stood waiting with champagne and a gift. I pulled over on Lakeshore Drive, parking where I could watch waves crash against the breakwater. The violence of the water matched something rising in me, not a desire to lash out, but a forceful need to reclaim my dignity. My phone began buzzing with texts from Emily. "Jake, I'm so sorry. It's not what it looked like. Please let me explain. Where are you? It just happened. It didn't mean anything. You're not being fair. Call me." Each message exposed another layer of manipulation. Nothing about genuine remorse or acknowledgement, just damage control and blame shifting. The final text cemented my resolve. This is exactly why I've been distant. Your jealousy and possessiveness give me no freedom. We need to talk about your issues. I laughed out loud in my car, a sharp sound that surprised me. After being cheated on during our anniversary, I was somehow the problem. The audacity was almost impressive. I turned off my phone and continued driving, memories flooding back with new clarity, the constant cancellations, the growing distance, the subtle ways she'd make me feel unreasonable for expecting basic consideration. I'd been so determined to be understanding, to be the good guy, that I'd allowed myself to be thoroughly manipulated. Rain drummed on the roof as realization settled. This betrayal, painful as it was, had freed me. The doubt that had plagued me was gone. The fog had lifted. I hadn't been crazy or controlling or paranoid. I'd been right all along, and now I had irrefutable proof. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, feeling something break and reform inside me. The hurt remained, but something stronger was emerging, a determination that this would never happen again. And I would never again doubt my own perceptions or allow someone to make me question my reality. "Never again," I said aloud to the empty car, my voice steady. The words felt like a vow. I turned toward home, knowing with certainty that whatever happened next, I would face it standing firmly in my truth. I returned to our apartment, my apartment technically, as my name alone was on the lease, and blocked Emily's number. The relief was immediate, her desperate texts no longer infiltrating my thoughts. Next, I deactivated my social media accounts temporarily. Whatever drama unfolded online, I didn't need to witness it. Methodically, I gathered Emily's essential items: medication, important documents, the portfolio she needed for client presentations, and packed them in a box that I left with the building doorman. I sent one final text before blocking her. "Your essentials are with Carlos downstairs. I need space. Don't come up. Don't contact me for 2 weeks." Then I called the one person I knew would understand. "Lisa," I said when she answered, "you were right about Emily, about all of it." Lisa had been my friend before Emily, though we'd drifted apart during my relationship. She'd expressed concerns about Emily's friend group months ago, concerns I'd dismissed as overprotectiveness. "Oh, Jake," she said, her voice warm with sympathy but free from judgment. "What happened?" I gave her the abbreviated version, ending with, "They're not just toxic socially. There's something off about the whole group, especially Finn. His lifestyle doesn't match his job." "I'm not surprised," Lisa replied. "My brother Michael, the detective, he's mentioned that crowd before. Nothing specific, but enough that I got the impression they're into something sketchy." This new information settled alongside my marketing instincts, which had been picking up inconsistencies in Finn's displayed wealth versus his likely income. "I need to document the harassment," I said, as my phone began ringing with calls from unknown numbers. Emily using friends' phones to circumvent my block. "They're already starting." "Be careful, Jake," Lisa warned. "If they're into something illegal and feel threatened, this could escalate." "I know," I replied, a plan already forming. "But if they push me, I want to be prepared." After we hung up, I created a new document titled Harassment Log, noting the times, numbers, and any voicemails left. Then I set up a separate folder labeled observations, where I could track any concerning patterns about Finn and his friends. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't that person. But I also wasn't going to be a victim if their harassment continued. My analytical nature, once devoted to marketing strategies, now turned toward understanding exactly what I'd been peripherally involved with through Emily. As I organized these documents, a text came through from an unblocked number. Marcus checking on me. I replied honestly. Found Emily kissing Finn at a party while I waited at our anniversary dinner. It's over. Might need a friend. His response was immediate. Coming over. Bringing bourbon. You're not alone in this. For the first time since leaving the party, I felt a wave of emotion break through my calculated calm. I wasn't alone. And while one relationship had ended, others, healthier ones, were already strengthening in its wake. Sometimes the quiet ones have the most powerful responses when pushed too far. 2 days after the anniversary disaster, the harassment intensified. My car's tires were slashed outside my office. Notes appeared under my windshield wiper. Back off. Mind your business. As if I had been the one to invade their lives rather than the other way around. Something about their reaction seemed disproportionate to a simple breakup. Emily had moved on, gotten what she wanted. Freedom to be with Finn openly. Why the continued hostility? My father had been a detective with Chicago PD before cancer took him 5 years ago. Growing up, I'd absorbed his methodical approach to problem-solving, his attention to detail, his patience. Observation is a skill, he'd say. Most people look, but they don't see. Now I began to truly see. I retrieved my camera equipment from storage. Photography had been a serious hobby before work, and relationship demands left little time for it. The telephoto lens would be particularly useful. I established a routine. After work, I'd drive to locations where Emily's social media had shown the group gathering. I'd park at a distance, documenting who came and went, what they carried, which vehicles they drove. I wasn't following Emily. I was observing patterns at specific locations. Within a week, I'd identified 3 main gathering spots: Finn's loft, a warehouse in an industrial area west of the city, and a private club in River North that seemed to operate after hours. The warehouse particularly interested me. Luxury cars would arrive empty and leave loaded with unmarked boxes. The club featured a rotating cast of characters, including several I recognized as minor local celebrities, and at least 2 people I was certain were city officials. I created maps, timelines, and relationship charts. Each photo, each observation, added to an increasingly complex picture. This wasn't just a social group. It was an operation of some kind. The most revealing discovery came when I photographed a pre-dawn meeting outside the warehouse. Finn handed over a duffel bag to a man with distinctive tattoos, whom I later identified through research as a known associate of a gambling network. Money for product, or product for money. Either way, it wasn't graphic design work they were exchanging. My apartment wall became command central, photos and notes connected with colored string like something from a police procedural. Except this wasn't fiction. And I wasn't playing detective. I was protecting myself by understanding exactly who was threatening me. When Emily's friends vandalized my car, they'd crossed a line from emotional harassment to property damage. They'd made it clear they saw me as a threat. I needed to understand why, and more importantly, what they might do next. What started as self-protection was revealing something much larger. The question wasn't just what Emily had been hiding from me, but what she and her friends were hiding from everyone. "This is thorough," Lisa said, standing in my living room a week later, staring at my evidence wall. "Reminds me of Michael's case boards." "Speaking of Michael," I replied, Is that offer to talk to him still open? This has gone beyond relationship drama. Lisa nodded, studying a photograph of the warehouse exchange. He mentioned that address before. I'll call him. Detective Michael Montgomery arrived that evening after his shift, still in his rumpled suit, looking exactly as I'd expect Lisa's older brother to look, same observant eyes, same direct manner. "You've got quite the setup here," he said, examining my documentation. "Lisa said your ex's friends were harassing you, but this is more than that." "I think so too," I agreed. "It started with slashed tires and threatening notes, but I'm seeing patterns that suggest organized illegal activity." Michael studied the photos methodically. "Street racing, for sure," he noted, pointing to images of modified cars. "Gambling, probably, and this exchange here, that's not office supplies." "Drugs?" I asked. "Most likely." "Mid-level distribution based on the quantities." He turned to me. "You realize you've stumbled into an ongoing investigation. We've had our eye on several of these players for months." My stomach tightened. "Am I interfering with police work?" Michael shook his head. "Actually, you've documented connections we suspected but couldn't prove." He pointed to a photo of Finn with the tattooed man. "That's Randy Diaz, known associate of the Esparza network. This photo places him directly with Davidson, which we didn't have before." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Officially, I'd tell you to stop investigating and let us handle it." Michael held up a hand when I started to protest. "Unofficially, you've got access and angles we don't. But you need to be careful, follow proper protocols, and understand the legal boundaries." For the next hour, Michael explained how to document legally admissible evidence, what constituted trespassing versus observation from public property, and most importantly, how to maintain my safety. "These people are making money," he warned. "Lots of it. People who make money illegally don't appreciate being watched." "I understand," I said. "I'm not looking to be a hero. I just want the harassment to stop. And I want to know what Emily got herself involved in." "Fair enough," Michael nodded. "We'll set up a secure channel for you to share information. But Jake," his expression grew serious, "if at any point you feel threatened, you back off immediately and call me. No exceptions." After Michael left, Lisa stayed behind, concern evident in her expression. "Are you sure about this, Jake? You could just move, start fresh somewhere else." "I could," I agreed. "But they came after me, Lisa. I didn't go looking for this fight." "Just be careful," she said, squeezing my arm. "I only just got my friend back. I don't want to lose you to these people." As Lisa left, I felt a strange mix of apprehension and purpose. For months, I'd been reacting to Emily's manipulation, always on the defensive. Now I was taking control, not just of my narrative, but of my safety and future. The evidence wall had become more than documentation of a failed relationship. It represented my refusal to be victimized any further, by Emily, by Finn, or by anyone else. Over the next 3 weeks, my documentation became more strategic, guided by Michael's advice. I established a routine designed to appear random to anyone watching me. Different observation points, varied times, never the same pattern twice. The evidence accumulated steadily, street racing in industrial areas with significant sums changing hands. After-hours gambling at the private club. Regular deliveries to and from the warehouse at times no legitimate business would operate. I created a secure cloud storage system for backing up photos and notes, with access shared only with Michael. Each night, I added to our growing case file, careful to maintain the chain of evidence he'd taught me to preserve. Emily attempted contact several times, first angry, then pleading, finally threatening. I documented each communication without responding. Her tone shifted noticeably as weeks passed, suggesting the group was becoming concerned about my silence and apparent disengagement. "They're getting nervous," Michael confirmed during one of our weekly check-ins. "Davidson's been asking around about you, trying to find out what you know." "How would you like to proceed?" I asked, falling naturally into the procedural language we'd established. "We're almost there," Michael replied. "The task force needs one more solid connection between the gambling operation and the drug distribution. Right now, we can prove they're separate operations involving the same people, but not that they're connected enterprises." I pulled up a recent photo on my laptop. Would this help? The image showed Finn entering the club with the same duffel bag he'd exchanged at the warehouse, timestamp clearly visible. Michael leaned forward. "That's exactly what we need. Can you get a clearer shot of him leaving, preferably without the bag?" "I can try tomorrow night. Thursday is their busiest night based on my observations." The next evening, I positioned myself on a rooftop parking structure with clear sight lines to the club's rear exit. The telephoto lens captured Finn's arrival at 10:17 p.m. with the duffel, and his departure at 2:43 a.m. without it, accompanied by Emily, who looked pale and unsteady on her feet. I sent the images to Michael immediately, along with notes on everyone who entered and exited between those times. His response came an hour later. "This completes the connection. Task Force is preparing warrants. Stand down completely. We'll be in touch." I packed up my camera with a strange sense of completion. What had begun as self-protection had evolved into something much larger. The harassment that had followed my breakup with Emily had inadvertently led me to uncover the very operation that had drawn her away. As I drove home in the pre-dawn light, I realized that for the first time in weeks, I'd gone an entire evening without thinking about Emily as my ex-girlfriend. Instead, she'd simply been another subject in my viewfinder, a participant in something much bigger than our failed relationship. The distance felt healthy, the clarity felt empowering, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing justice was approaching felt like the beginning of closure. What would you do if the people who betrayed you suddenly needed your help? The hardest boundaries to maintain are the ones tested by compassion. The Chicago Police Department's conference room felt smaller than I'd imagined. Detective Michael Montgomery sat beside me as I presented my evidence to 3 members of the Organized Crime Task Force, my marketing presentation skills unexpectedly useful in this context. "As you can see," I concluded, advancing to the final slide, "there's a clear pattern connecting these locations, individuals, and activities." I indicated the timeline displaying months of documented exchanges, meetings, and transactions. The warehouse serves as the distribution point, the club functions as the money laundering operation, and Davidson's apartment appears to be the planning hub. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the task force leader, leaned forward. "This is impressive work, Mr. Harrison. More thorough than some of my detectives." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I'm detail-oriented by nature, and I had motivation." "The harassment," Rodriguez nodded. "You mentioned property damage and threats?" "Yes," I confirmed, opening a separate folder. Slashed tires, threatening notes, multiple calls from blocked numbers, and surveillance of my apartment. I laid out the documentation chronologically. It began immediately after I discovered my ex-girlfriend's relationship with Davidson. The officers exchanged glances, and I realized they were surprised by the quality and thoroughness of my evidence. "Your father was James Harrison, wasn't he?" Rodriguez asked suddenly. I nodded, surprised. "You knew him?" "Worked with him early in my career, I see he taught you a few things. She turned to her colleagues. This gives us what we need for the warrants. The connection between the gambling operation and the distribution network is clear. What happens now? I asked. We move forward with surveillance and prepare for coordinated raids, Michael explained. But your part is done, Jake. For your safety, you need to step back completely. What about my anonymity? I asked. If they connect the investigation to me, your name stays out of all official documentation, Rodriguez assured me. You're a confidential informant, nothing more. As far as the record shows, this investigation was already underway. I felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. The evidence was out of my hands, in the proper channels. The system would take over. As we left the station, Michael clapped me on the shoulder. You did good work, Jake. Now let the professionals handle it. How long before anything happens? I asked. Weeks, possibly. Building a case takes time. He hesitated. Jake, when this goes down, Emily could be caught in the middle. Are you prepared for that? I considered the question seriously. I don't want to see her hurt, I admitted, but I can't protect her from her own choices anymore. Michael nodded, understanding. That's a healthy perspective. Get back to your life now. Let us do our job. That evening, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Jake, it's Emily. We need to talk. It's important. Please call me. I stared at the message, wondering what had prompted this latest attempt at contact after weeks of silence. Had word somehow gotten back to the group that police interest was increasing? Was this another manipulation tactic? I didn't respond, but saved the message to my documentation file. Whatever game they were playing, I was no longer a participant. 3 days later, Emily appeared in the lobby of Crawford Marketing as I returned from lunch. Jake, she called, stepping toward me. Please, I've been trying to reach you. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite conceal. Her normally impeccable style seemed thrown together, her hair pulled back hastily. This isn't appropriate, Emily, I said, maintaining distance. I'm at work. You won't answer my calls or texts. I didn't have a choice. Her voice had an edge of desperation I hadn't heard before. Several colleagues glanced our way, including Marcus, who immediately started walking in our direction. Whatever you need to say, it can't happen here, I insisted quietly. Everything okay, Jake? Marcus asked, arriving at my side with purposeful timing. Fine, I replied, grateful for the backup. Emily was just leaving. I need 5 minutes, Emily pleaded. That's all. It's important. Something in her expression gave me pause. Genuine fear rather than manipulation. But I'd learned the hard way not to trust my instincts where she was concerned. I have a meeting, I stated firmly. If you want to talk, text me a time and place for this evening. Public location only. She nodded quickly. Fine. Thank you. I'll text you. As she turned to leave, Marcus stepped closer. You okay? Yeah, I sighed. Just unexpected. Want me to walk you up? I shook my head. I'm good. Thanks for the assist. That's what friends do, he replied simply. Later that afternoon, Emily's text arrived. Millennium Park, Cloudgate, 6:30. Just me. It's about Finn. I'm scared, Jake. I forwarded the message to Michael before responding. I'll be there, 10 minutes only. Michael called immediately. Be careful. This could be legitimate concern on her part, or it could be them trying to find out what you know. I'll meet her in public, keep it brief, and tell her nothing about the investigation, I assured him. Want me nearby? He offered. No, but stay on alert. I'll call after. At 6:30, I spotted Emily waiting by the bean, nervously scanning the crowd. I approached cautiously, stopping at a comfortable distance. "Thank you for coming," she said, visibly relieved. "What's this about, Emily?" She glanced around before speaking. "Something's wrong with Finn. He's paranoid, saying someone's watching the group, gathering evidence." Her eyes searched mine. "Is it you, Jake? Are you reporting them?" The directness of her question caught me off guard, but I kept my expression neutral. "Why would I be watching anyone? I've moved on with my life." "Don't lie to me," she hissed, suddenly intense. "Finn says if it's you, there will be consequences. Serious ones. People are nervous." "Is that a threat?" I asked calmly. "It's a warning," she insisted. "These people aren't who I thought they were. The things I've seen." She trailed off, looking genuinely frightened. "I'm trying to help you." "Or you're fishing for information on their behalf," I countered. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out, her voice breaking. 6 weeks? It's Finn's. I wanted you to hear it from me." The revelation landed like a physical blow, though I maintained my composure. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "You don't understand," she continued, tears forming. "I'm trapped now. He's into things, dangerous things. I didn't know when it started. I thought it was just parties, connections, excitement. And now? Now I know better," she whispered, "and I can't get out." I studied her, trying to separate truth from manipulation. The pregnancy could be real. The timing aligned with our breakup. The fear seemed genuine, but I'd been fooled before. "What exactly do you want from me, Emily?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe just to warn you. Maybe—" She hesitated. "Maybe to know if there's a way out." Before I could respond, I noticed Lisa approaching across the plaza. She'd obviously been watching from a distance, concern evident on her face. "Everything okay here?" she asked, stopping beside me. Emily's expression hardened at Lisa's appearance. "Of course you'd have her spying for you." "No one's spying," Lisa replied evenly. "Just looking out for a friend." Emily looked between us, understanding dawning. "You're together now, aren't you? That didn't take long." "We're friends," I stated firmly. "And my personal life isn't your concern anymore, Emily." "Time's up," I added, checking my watch. "Whatever choices you've made, whatever situation you're in, it's yours to handle now." "Jake, please," she pleaded as I turned to leave. I paused, offering the only honest advice I could. "If you're really scared, if you're really pregnant, go to the police. Make better choices than you have been." As Lisa and I walked away, Emily called after us. "They'll come after you, Jake. They know it's you." Lisa squeezed my arm. "You okay?" "Yeah," I replied, surprised to find it was true. Despite the pregnancy revelation, despite the threats, I felt oddly calm. "Let's get out of here." As we left the park, I texted Michael. Meeting over. New development. Emily claims pregnancy. Also delivered clear threat. Call me. The next morning, I discovered my apartment door ajar when I returned from my run. Nothing appeared to be missing, but the invasion was clear. Someone had been there, looking through my things. More disturbing was what they'd left behind, a single playing card on my kitchen counter. The King of Spades with a crude X drawn across the face in red marker. I photographed it without touching it, then called Michael. "They're escalating," he confirmed after arriving to examine the scene. "This is a direct threat." The King of Spades is traditionally the death card. "Subtle," I remarked dryly, masking my unease. "We need to move you somewhere safe until this is over," Michael insisted. The task force is expediting the warrants based on the escalation, but it could still be days before we move. I shook my head. If I disappear, they'll know for certain I'm working with you. Better to maintain normal patterns while increasing security. After Michael left to process the break-in evidence, I made a decision. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the file containing my most damning evidence against Finn's operation. The materials I'd held back, even from Michael. Location details of their largest stash house. Names of their political connections. Financial records I'd managed to photograph showing money movement between their legitimate business fronts and offshore accounts. I compiled everything into an encrypted file and sent it to Michael with a simple message. Additional evidence I've been withholding as insurance. Given today's escalation, you should have everything. Move as soon as possible. His response came quickly. Received. This changes the timeline. Stay vigilant. That evening, Lisa came over to help me install additional security measures. Camera doorbells, window sensors, motion-activated lights. We worked in focused silence until the system was operational. You could stay with me, she offered as we tested the alerts on our phones. Just until this is over. Thanks, but I need to maintain normal patterns, I explained. Anything unusual might trigger them to scatter before the police can move. Lisa studied me with concern. When did you become so strategic? The Jake I knew before Emily was more trusting, naive, I suggested. I was going to say relaxed, she corrected gently. You've changed. I considered this. Not changed, evolved maybe. I see things more clearly now. Just don't lose yourself in all this evidence and strategy, she cautioned. When this is over, there needs to be a Jake who can move forward, not just a guy who won a battle. Her words resonated more than I wanted to admit. I'd been so focused on documentation, on justice, on protection, that I'd scarcely considered what came after. One step at a time, I replied. First, we end this. Later that night, after Lisa left, I received a text from Michael. Warrants approved. Operation scheduled for Friday night. Stay home. Doors locked. Security active. Will contact when clear. Friday, just 2 days away. After weeks of documentation, of looking over my shoulder, of piecing together the operation that had stolen my girlfriend and then threatened my safety, it would finally end. I sent one last text to Michael before going to bed. What about Emily? His response was carefully measured. If she's not directly involved in criminal activity, she won't face charges, but she'll be questioned. If she's smart, she'll cooperate. I stared at his message, torn between lingering concern for someone I once loved and the clear-eyed recognition that she'd made her choices. Her pregnancy complicated things emotionally, but not logically. She'd chosen her path. Now she would face the consequences of that choice, just as I had faced the consequences of mine. The security system chimed as I locked down for the night, the apartment now a technological fortress. 2 more days. I could handle anything for 2 more days. Sometimes justice comes through official channels, and sometimes it comes through the quiet strength of refusing to back down. Friday evening arrived with an eerie calm. I followed Michael's instructions, staying home with doors locked and security active. The waiting was excruciating. I checked news sites compulsively, knowing the raids would likely make headlines once underway. At 10:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Operation in progress. Multiple locations simultaneously. Stay put. I turned on the local news, which was already breaking coverage. We're following a developing story across Chicago tonight as police conduct what appears to be a coordinated series of raids at multiple locations. the anchor announced. "We have crews en route to a warehouse in the industrial district, a private club in River North, and several residential addresses. Police are not yet commenting on the nature of these operations." Live helicopter footage showed police vehicles surrounding the warehouse, tactical teams in position. The scene repeated at the club, where patrons were being escorted out and questioned. My phone buzzed again. Primary targets in custody. Davidson apprehended at the club. Evidence seizure ongoing. Relief washed over me, followed by a strange emptiness. After weeks of documentation, of looking over my shoulder, of piecing together the complex operation, it was over. The justice I'd sought was being delivered through proper channels, without vengeance or personal confrontation. The news continued its coverage, reporters speculating about a major organized crime takedown and high-profile arrests. I recognized faces in the background of some shots, people from Finn's inner circle being led to police vehicles in handcuffs. Then the camera caught a glimpse of Emily being escorted from the club, not in handcuffs, but clearly being taken for questioning. She looked small and lost among the chaos, clutching her purse against her stomach in what might have been a protective gesture for her pregnancy. I felt no satisfaction seeing her caught in the aftermath, only a complicated sadness for what might have been in another reality where different choices were made. At midnight, Michael called rather than texted. "It's done," he said simply. "Major success. We've got Davidson and 12 others in custody. Seized significant quantities of controlled substances, gambling paraphernalia, financial records, and over $2 million in cash." "And Emily?" I asked, despite myself. Michael hesitated. "She's cooperating, claiming she only recently became aware of the criminal activities. Given her limited involvement and a condition, she'll likely face minimal consequences, if any." "Good," I said, and meant it. "What happens now?" "For the investigation. Weeks of processing evidence, building cases, preparing for trials. For you, it's over, Jake. You can get back to your life." After we hung up, I stood at my apartment window, looking out at the Chicago skyline, lights blinking across the darkness. For months, my life had revolved around Emily, then around documenting the group's activities, then around protecting myself from their threats. Now suddenly, those driving forces were gone. "Back to my life," I repeated to myself. But what exactly did that mean now? The following days unfolded like a fever breaking. News coverage revealed the full scope of what the police were calling the Lakeshore Operation, a network involving illegal street racing, gambling, drug distribution, and money laundering that had operated across Chicago for nearly 2 years. Finn Davidson featured prominently in the coverage, identified as a key organizer who had used his legitimate graphic design business as a front. His carefully cultivated image as a successful young entrepreneur crumbled as financial records revealed most of his wealth came from illegal activities. I followed the developments with detached interest, like watching the final episodes of a show I'd stopped caring about but wanted to see through to conclusion. The most surprising revelation came 3 days after the raids, when Michael sent me a news link with a brief message. "Thought you should see this. Your documentation helped more than you know." The article detailed how several of Finn's associates had turned on each other immediately after arrest, offering information in exchange for leniency. The group's unified front had collapsed spectacularly under pressure, with longtime friends suddenly revealing damning evidence against each other. Most notably, Finn had apparently attempted to place all blame on his subordinates while planning to flee the country. Passport and flight details found in his apartment indicated he'd been planning his escape for weeks, with no provision for Emily despite her pregnancy. This final betrayal seemed to have broken something in Emily. According to the article, an unnamed female associate of Davidson had provided authorities with access to additional financial records and communication details that significantly strengthened the case. I didn't need Michael's confirmation to know the unnamed female associate was Emily. She had finally seen Finn clearly, just as I had eventually seen her. Later that week, Marcus and I were having lunch when he nodded toward the restaurant television showing footage of Finn being led into court. "Heard anything from Emily?" he asked carefully. "No," I replied truthfully, "and I don't expect to." "Lisa mentioned Emily's pregnant," he said. "That's rough." "It is," I agreed, "but not my concern anymore." Marcus studied me. "You're different these days. Calmer, more, I don't know, centered." I considered this. I lost myself for a while in that relationship, doubted my own perceptions. Won't happen again. "Good," he nodded approvingly. For what it's worth, I think the new Jake is an upgrade. As we finished lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Emily. I'm sorry for everything. Truly. I'm cooperating with the authorities. Finn was planning to leave without me, without us. I was so blind. You deserved better." I stared at the message, feeling neither vindication nor anger, just a quiet acknowledgement of a chapter closing. After a moment's consideration, I typed a simple reply. "I hope you and your baby find peace, Emily." Then I blocked the number and put my phone away. Some conversations didn't need to continue. 1 week after the raids, Michael called with unexpected news. "Emily's asking to meet with you. One time, supervised by us at the station." "Why?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. "She says there are things you should know, things she wants to tell you directly." Michael paused. "It's your call." "You have no obligation to meet her." I considered declining immediately, but curiosity won out. "When?" "Tomorrow morning, if you're willing." The police station interview room felt sterile and impersonal, a fitting location for what would likely be my final interaction with Emily. I sat waiting, oddly calm, when the door opened and she entered, accompanied by a female officer who took a position in the corner. Emily looked both better and worse than at Millennium Park. More composed, but more tired. The dark circles under her eyes more pronounced. She sat across from me, hands folded on the table. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady. "I know you didn't have to. What did you want to tell me, Emily?" I kept my tone neutral, neither warm nor cold. She met my eyes directly. "I wanted you to hear from me that I'm testifying against Finn and the others, fully cooperating." "That's good," I replied. "But you could have conveyed that through Michael." "There's more." She took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize properly, not just for the cheating, but for everything that came after, the lying, the gaslighting, letting them harass you." She shook her head. "I convinced myself you were overreacting, that it wasn't that serious, that you were just jealous." "And now?" I prompted when she paused. "Now I know you saw everything clearly. You tried to talk to me about it rationally, and I twisted it all around on you." Her voice cracked slightly. "You were right about them from the beginning, about Finn. I just couldn't or wouldn't see it." I nodded, acknowledging her words without offering absolution. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve to hear it," she replied simply. "And because—" she hesitated. "Because I need to say it out loud as part of accepting what I did, who I became." We sat in silence for a moment before she continued. "I'm moving back to Minneapolis after all this is settled. My parents are there. They'll help with the baby." She touched her stomach briefly. I'm keeping it, despite everything. I think that's good, I said, and meant it. What about you? She asked. What will you do now? The question caught me off guard. It seemed strange to discuss my future with someone who was now firmly part of my past. I've accepted a position with a marketing firm in Seattle, I said, sharing news I'd only finalized days earlier. Fresh start. With Lisa? She asked, a trace of the old Emily breaking through. That's not really your concern, I replied evenly. Emily nodded, accepting the boundary. Fair enough. She hesitated again. There's one more thing. The police found evidence that Finn was behind the harassment, the slashed tires, the break-in, the threats. He was convinced you were building a case against him. I was, I acknowledged without elaboration. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Yes, you were. She looked down at her hands. I underestimated you. We all did. People often do, I replied, not unkindly. The officer in the corner shifted, indicating our time was ending. I should go, I said, standing. Jake, Emily said quickly. For whatever it's worth, I am sorry. For everything. I looked at her one last time. This woman I had once planned a future with. In her face, I saw regret, fear, and a glimmer of the person I'd initially fallen for, now tempered by harsh reality. I believe you, I said finally. Good luck, Emily. As I walked out of the station into the bright Chicago morning, I felt no triumph, no vindication, just the quiet certainty that one chapter of my life had definitively closed, making space for whatever came next. The ultimate achievement isn't winning the battle, but emerging from it with your integrity and humanity intact. 2 weeks after my final meeting with Emily, I stood in my half-packed apartment, sorting possessions into categories. Take to Seattle, sell, donate, trash. Each item seemed to carry emotional weight beyond its physical presence. The coffee table where Emily and I had shared countless meals. The couch where we'd fallen asleep watching movies. The bookshelf where our collections had merged and now separated again. Marcus sat on the one remaining chair, helping me catalog items for an upcoming estate sale. You sure about Seattle? Crawford would match any offer to keep you. I'm sure, I replied, carefully wrapping a framed photo of my parents. Chicago has too many ghosts now. And Lisa? He asked casually, though I caught the underlying question. She's considering positions there too. Nothing definite yet. I taped the box closed. We're taking things slow. Seeing where it leads naturally. Marcus nodded approvingly. Smart. After everything that happened. He trailed off. After everything that happened, I continued for him, I've learned a lot about relationships. About myself. Like what? Marcus leaned forward, genuinely interested. I considered the question seriously. That I don't regret loving Emily, despite how it ended. That trusting someone isn't a weakness, but trusting blindly is. That sometimes walking away is harder and braver than staying. Deep thoughts for a Thursday afternoon, Marcus quipped, but his expression was thoughtful. My phone chimed with a news alert. Another article about the ongoing prosecution of the Lakeshore operation. I glanced at it briefly before putting the phone away. Each day, the story felt less like my story, more like something I'd watched happen to someone else. Still following the case? Marcus asked. Less and less, I admitted. It doesn't define me anymore. Marcus helped me carry several boxes down to the donation truck waiting outside. As we returned to the apartment, he gestured to the now bare walls, where my evidence board had once dominated the living room. Remember when this place looked like a detective agency? He laughed. I half expected to find you wearing a trench coat and smoking a pipe. I smiled at the memory. I was a bit obsessed. For good reason, Marcus countered. They were threatening you. You protected yourself. True, I acknowledged. But there's a fine line between protection and fixation. I'm glad it's over. As Marcus left that evening, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, Jake, I think Seattle's getting a better version of you than Chicago had. After he left, I stood alone in my increasingly empty apartment, considering his words. The past months had changed me. The betrayal, the investigation, the resolution. I'd discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed, and shed illusions I hadn't realized I carried. The apartment felt lighter with each box removed, and so did I. The weight of surveillance. The night before my departure for Seattle, Lisa organized a small farewell gathering at her apartment, just a few close friends who'd supported me through the past months. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and good-natured teasing about rain gear and coffee snobbery in my new city. As the evening wound down, Marcus raised his glass in an impromptu toast. To Jake, may Seattle appreciate what Chicago is losing. Hear, hear, the others echoed, clinking glasses. Speech, someone called, and suddenly all eyes were on me. I hadn't prepared anything, but words came naturally. I want to thank all of you, I began, not just for tonight, but for being there during everything. Nods of understanding circled the room. Someone recently asked what I learned from all this, I continued. I've been thinking about it, and I realized something important. Love shouldn't require self-erasure. The room quieted, everyone listening intently. With Emily, I gradually made myself smaller, doubting my perceptions, excusing inexcusable behavior, blaming myself for expecting basic honesty. I took a breath. I thought that's what love meant, accommodation at any cost. I was wrong. Lisa caught my eye across the room, her expression thoughtful. Real love, whether romantic, friendship, or family, should make us more ourselves, not less. It should add to our lives, not diminish them. I raised my glass. So my toast is to all of you who helped me remember who I am when I'd started to forget. After the toast, as conversations resumed around us, Marcus pulled me aside. That thing you said about love not requiring self-erasure, that hit home. How so? I asked. Been having some issues with Diane lately, he admitted, naming his current girlfriend. Lot of the same patterns you described, feeling like I can't quite be myself. What are you going to do about it? I asked, though I suspected I knew. Have an honest conversation, he replied firmly. Set some boundaries. See if we can fix it, or if it's time to move on. He shook his head, smiling ruefully. Never thought I'd be taking relationship advice from you, Harrison. Learned it the hard way, I reminded him. Hopefully, you won't have to. Later, as guests departed, Lisa and I cleaned up in comfortable silence. Finally, she spoke. Did you mean what you said about love making us more ourselves? Every word, I confirmed. Why? She smiled, a warm, genuine expression that reached her eyes. Because that's how I've felt these past few months. More myself, not less. Even with everything else going on. I realized she was talking about us, the gradual shift from friendship to something more, built on mutual respect and genuine interest rather than need or escape. I felt that too, I admitted. It's different. Different good? She asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. Different perfect. 6 months after leaving Chicago, I stood at the window of my Seattle apartment, watching rain trace patterns down the glass. The city had welcomed me with its moody skies and earnest coffee culture, its tech-focused marketing community receptive to my Chicago portfolio and experience. Lisa had joined me 3 months ago, securing a position with a nonprofit that perfectly matched her skills and interests. Our relationship had developed naturally, without pressure or expectation, a refreshing contrast to previous experiences. "Mail's here," Lisa called, entering with a stack of envelopes, including something from Chicago. She handed me a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping, a small article announcing that Emily Chen had given birth to a healthy baby boy. A brief note accompanied it in unfamiliar handwriting. "Jake, thought you might want to know Emily is doing well. She's in a recovery program, staying with her parents and focusing on her son. The baby is healthy. She's testifying next month in the final cases. Thought you'd want to know she's finding her way. Detective M. Montgomery." I set the clipping aside, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Relief that Emily and her child were okay, gratitude that Michael had thought to update me, but mostly a sense of distance, as if reading about characters from a book I'd finished months ago. "Everything okay?" Lisa asked, noting my expression. "Yes," I replied honestly. "Just news about Emily. She had her baby. Seems to be doing better." Lisa nodded, understanding without jealousy. "That's good to hear." We moved to the balcony despite the light rain, a ritual we'd developed since moving to Seattle. The city spread below us, Puget Sound visible in the distance when the clouds permitted. "Any regrets?" Lisa asked, leaning against the railing beside me. "About leaving Chicago?" I clarified. "About any of it," she elaborated. "The whole Emily situation, the investigation, starting over here." I considered the question seriously. "No," I said finally. "I regret that people got hurt. Emily, her baby, even Finn in his way. I regret not seeing the warning signs earlier. But I don't regret how I handled it once I knew the truth, and I definitely don't regret where it led me." I glanced at her. This woman who had been friend, then supporter, now partner. "Sometimes walking away is the beginning, not the end." She smiled, understanding the double meaning. Walking away from Chicago had been the beginning of Seattle. Walking away from Emily had been the beginning of us. The rain intensified, driving us back inside. As we closed the balcony door, my phone chimed with a message from Marcus. "Took your advice about Diane. Tough conversations, but better now. Some relationships are worth fighting for. The right ones. Thanks, man." I showed Lisa the message, and she squeezed my hand. "Seems like your hard-earned wisdom is helping others." Maybe that's the point, I reflected. Maybe the scars we carry become maps others can follow to avoid the same pitfalls. Later that evening, as Seattle's early darkness settled around our apartment, I found myself thinking about the long journey from that rainy anniversary night to this new life. The betrayal had been painful, the aftermath complicated, but standing on the other side, I could see how necessary it had been. The experience hadn't hardened me, as I'd once feared. Instead, it had clarified what mattered: truth, mutual respect, healthy boundaries. It had taught me that walking away from toxicity isn't weakness, but strength, that loyalty is meaningless without reciprocity, that love should enhance rather than diminish. Most importantly, it had shown me that even the deepest wounds eventually heal, leaving behind not just scars, but wisdom. if we're brave enough to learn the lessons they offer. True strength isn't measured by how long you endure mistreatment, but by your courage to declare your worth non-negotiable. Jake's journey from betrayal to self-reclamation reminds us that walking away from toxic relationships requires more courage than staying, and that this difficult choice often leads to unexpected growth and happiness. When we mistake loyalty for self-erasure, we don't just lose others, we lose ourselves. Jake's gradual awakening to Emily's manipulation parallels what many experience in relationships where boundaries are consistently violated. His story validates the confusion, self-doubt, and grief that accompany such realizations, while offering hope that clarity and peace await on the other side. Perhaps the most powerful lesson in Jake's experience is that betrayal, painful as it is, often reveals strengths we didn't know we possessed. His methodical documentation not only protected him from further harm, but ultimately led to justice through proper channels, demonstrating that responding to wrongdoing with integrity rather than vengeance preserves our character even in difficult circumstances. The courage to establish boundaries isn't selfishness, but self-respect. When Jake finally refused to accept Emily's manipulation and lies, he wasn't abandoning commitment. He was honoring his own dignity. And this distinction matters deeply, especially when loyalty is weaponized to maintain unhealthy dynamics. If you recognize elements of Jake's story in your own life, the gradual erosion of boundaries, the questioning of your perceptions, the justification of increasingly problematic behavior, consider whether you're practicing love or enabling harm. Remember that healthy relationships add to our sense of self rather than diminishing it, and that sometimes the bravest step forward requires walking away. What relationship patterns in your life might benefit from the kind of clear-eyed evaluation Jake eventually applied to his situation with Emily? The answer might be the beginning of your own journey toward authentic connection and self-respect.